When I was 22, I started seeing a guy I met on a dating app. His name was Ethan. We went on about 4 dates over the span of a little more than a month. At first, it seemed like things were going well. Our first date was a quick coffee outing that lasted less than an hour, a sort of screening process to make sure he seemed normal. Our second date was at a nearby bar where we had drinks and got a nice buzz. It was fun, and I felt comfortable with him. On our third date, we went out for dinner. This was when I started to second-guess things, wondering if we truly clicked or if something about him felt slightly off. The date ended with a kiss, the first and only time we kissed. I convinced myself that because I allowed the kiss, things must have gone well. But by our fourth and final date, I was feeling less excited. We went out for drinks again, but I paid closer attention to his quirks. I noticed some of his mannerisms seemed unusual, antisocial, maybe even borderline creepy. He drank way too much that night and became overly touchy. At the bar, he kept trying to kiss me, which made me uncomfortable. I'm not a fan of PDA, especially not with people sitting right next to us. I politely turned him down and hinted that I was tired and ready to leave. He reluctantly asked for the check, paid it, and we left. As we walked to our cars, he suddenly stopped and bluntly asked if we could go home together. I told him, "Not tonight, I'm tired and have work tomorrow," though it wasn't true. He kept insisting, saying, "I'll drive you to work tomorrow," which shocked me. Whether he was drunk or not, it was absurd. I was also uneasy about him driving home intoxicated. At that moment, I decided I wouldn't see him again. I got into my car, parked in a lot across the street, and started driving home cautiously since I'd had a couple of drinks. I wasn't drunk, but was alert. I also became hyper-aware of my surroundings, which is why I noticed that the same car had been following me through multiple turns. At a stoplight, I realized the car looked like Ethan's. I texted him, "Are you following me?" He replied almost immediately, "Yes, I just want to make sure you get home safe." I called him, but he didn't pick up. This was so weird, borderline creepy. I pulled over and texted him to stop following me. He stopped in the middle of the street for a moment, likely reading my text, and then drove off. I didn't hear from him again until I was in bed. That's when he texted, "I hope I didn't weird you out tonight. Sorry I got so drunk. Next time we should do something low-key like dinner at my place." I didn't respond. The next morning he sent another follow-up. "Oh no, is the vibe dead?" I still didn't respond. A couple of hours later, he sent a question mark. Finally, I replied, "Hey, I had a great time getting to know you, but I don't think our personalities click that much. I also really just want to focus on myself right now. I hope you understand." That's when the angry text started. The worst one read, "No, I don't understand. You strung me along for 4 dates to tell me that? How about you pay me back for half of everything I bought for you then?" There were a few more angry messages with personal insults, which prompted me to block him. I thought that would be the end of it, but the next day, I started getting nonstop calls from a no-caller ID. I ignored them all until they finally stopped. The following day, I returned home from work to find a bouquet of flowers on my doorstep with a card. The card was an apology from Ethan, asking for a second chance. Somehow, he knew where I lived. That disturbed me. In his mind, he probably thought this gesture was sweet or romantic, but to me it was alarming. I texted him a final message. "Do not contact me again or come to my house. If you do, I'll file for a restraining order." I blocked his number and thought I was finally free, but I was wrong. Extended and enhanced version. The extension will add more atmospheric tension, emphasize the protagonist's emotions, and expand the climax. A week later, I was home alone for the night. My parents' house was large, and my bedroom was in the loft, a cozy space but also isolated. I awoke in the middle of the night to a faint noise. At first, I thought I was imagining it, but then I distinctly heard the creak of a door opening downstairs. My heart began to race. I sat up in bed, straining to listen. The sound of soft, deliberate footsteps reached my ears. Someone was in the house. My first thought was to call 911, but I worried the sound of my voice might alert the intruder. Instead, I texted my family, "Is anyone home?" No replies. That's when I heard the stairs creak. Someone was coming up. I slid off the bed and crawled underneath it, clutching my phone. My hands were trembling as I dialed 911 and whispered to the operator what was happening. The footsteps stopped outside my door. I saw the handle turn. The door creaked open, and I held my breath. Heavy footsteps padded across the carpet, moving closer. Then, I heard the sound of drawers opening. "Where is it?" a male voice muttered. My heart froze. It was Ethan. He rifled through my things, muttering angrily to himself. Then, the bed shifted as he sat down. I could see his shoes through the gap in the bed skirt. He stayed there for what felt like an eternity before finally standing and leaving the room. I heard him go down the stairs and out the front door. When the police arrived, they found that a window in the dining room had been pried open. They found no solid proof it was Ethan, but I was certain it was him. I filed for a restraining order the next day. To this day, I sometimes wake up in the middle of the night, convinced I hear footsteps in the house. When I was in the 6th grade, this all started during the week of Halloween. I stayed after school to help set up a haunted house for our school's Halloween carnival. Along with some friends, there was another kid who also stayed late. Let's call him Ryan. We got along fine during those after-school sessions. He was funny and seemed like a cool kid. I never felt uneasy around him during that time. Fast forward a couple of weeks, and I was approached by a group of girls in my grade. They were giggling and grinning as they told me I had a secret admirer who would be messaging me that night. I won't lie, I was curious. I wanted to know who it was. Later that evening, as I was about to go to bed, I got a notification on Messenger. It was from Ryan. I had completely forgotten that I'd added him on Facebook after Halloween. His message read, "Hey, I need to talk to you." I responded, "Sure, is everything okay?" It took him a while to type his response, and when it finally came through, I was shocked. He sent a long paragraph confessing his feelings for me, how he'd been crazy about me since Halloween, how he tried to impress me during recess with his soccer skills, and how he was tired of being ignored. He ended the message by asking if I'd be his girlfriend. I cringed as I read it. I barely knew him, and the message felt so over the top. I wanted to let him down gently, so I replied, "I think you're a nice guy, but I don't feel that way about you. I think we should just stay friends." He didn't take it well. He kept asking why, and I had to come up with reasons. Eventually, he stopped responding. The next day at school was a nightmare. His friends kept coming up to me, saying Ryan wanted to kiss me, and that he was planning to do it even if it meant cornering me. I was terrified. Taking this as a threat, I told my teacher, who advised me to stay inside during recess and lunch. But that didn't feel like enough. I went to the principal and reported him. The principal assured me he'd look into it, but nothing seemed to change. Ryan knew where I lived. Everyone did because I lived across the street from the school. One afternoon, shortly after I got home, someone knocked on the door. I peeked out the window and saw someone ducking behind a parked car. My mom opened the door and found a note addressed to me. The note said there was a surprise waiting for me under the Cadillac in our driveway, which belonged to my brother. My mom checked, but there was nothing there. Strangely, my brother's car stopped working soon after. To this day, I don't know what Ryan did to it. The harassment escalated. Ryan's friends kept pressuring me to give him a chance. One day, I caught him taking pictures of me as I walked home. I barely noticed because the sound of his phone's camera was so faint. Who knows how many photos he had? Every morning, I woke up to messages from him saying things like, "I can't wait to see you at school," or "I bet you'll look beautiful today." It made me feel sick. Eventually, the school counselor called me into her office. I thought she was going to help, but instead she told me, "Boys will be boys. They do crazy things when they're in love. You should feel flattered." Looking back, I can't believe how wrong it was for an adult to say that to a 6th grader who was being harassed and stalked. At the time, I believed her. When I told my mom what the counselor had said, she was furious. She confronted the school principal and demanded they do something. But nothing happened. Ryan was never punished for what he did. The worst incident happened one night when my parents were out shopping. I was in my room on the 2nd floor, about to go to bed. Suddenly, I heard something hit my window. At first, I thought it was a bird, but then it happened again and again. I pulled back the curtain and saw Ryan standing in my yard, throwing rocks at my window. He saw me and started saying something, but I couldn't hear him. I was terrified. I checked every door and window in the house to make sure they were locked. When I returned to my room, I had 4 messages from him. "Why did you leave? I just want to talk. I'm sorry. All I wanted was a kiss. Please forgive me. You're not who I thought you were. Bye." I blocked him after that. Thankfully, I never had another incident with him, though I had to see him at school for years. The last thing I heard about him was that he'd been arrested, though I don't know for what. I remember that week vividly. After Ryan started messaging me, I began to feel watched everywhere I went. Even in the safety of my home, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone might be outside looking in. The night he threw rocks at my window still haunts me. When I pulled back the curtain and saw him standing there, my blood ran cold. He looked so desperate, his face illuminated by the dim glow of the streetlights. His lips were moving, but I couldn't hear what he was saying. I quickly shut the curtain and crouched down, my heart pounding. I texted my mom and dad, begging them to come home. I didn't want to call the police because I was scared of what Ryan might do if he realized I'd called for help. Minutes felt like hours as I sat there in the dark, listening for any sound. I heard faint footsteps outside, followed by the sound of our front gate creaking open. I texted my mom again, "Please hurry. I think he's in the yard." When she and my dad finally got home, Ryan was gone. My dad checked the yard, but didn't find anything. I was too shaken to sleep that night. The next day at school, I felt like everyone was staring at me. Ryan's friends cornered me in the hallway saying, "You're being so mean to him. All he wants is a chance." I wanted to scream at them, to tell them how scared I was, but I didn't. I just kept walking. It wasn't until years later that I realized how deeply those experiences affected me. Even now, I find myself looking over my shoulder when I walk alone. I double-check that my windows and doors are locked every night. The saddest part of the story isn't even Ryan. It's the counselor who told me to feel flattered. As a child, I trusted adults to protect me, but instead, I was told to accept harassment as a compliment. I've healed in many ways, but some scars never fade. At 23, I was finally starting to feel like I had my life together. My name's Aaron, and I'd always been a bit of a recluse. As a kid, teachers told my parents I had antisocial tendencies. I didn't really understand what that meant back then, but as I got older, I realized I struggled with social situations. Middle school was a nightmare. Everyone seemed to find their friend groups, and I just couldn't fit in. By high school, things got worse. I wasn't bad at academics, but I'd always been awkward and introverted, which made forming connections hard. Relationships? Forget about it. I didn't lose my virginity until I was 21, and even then, it was awkward. But by 23, I had a stable, high-paying job in my field, and had just bought a townhouse in my hometown. It was a decent-sized place, 2 stories, modern design, and something I was proud to call my own. I decided to try my luck on Tinder. That's where I met Sophie. She was beautiful, with wavy blonde hair and a smile that could light up a room. We matched, and after a few days of messaging, we planned our first date. We met for dinner at a cozy Italian restaurant. I was nervous, overthinking everything, but Sophie seemed to like me. By the end of the night, I figured she wouldn't want to see me again, but when I got home, she texted me, "I had so much fun. Can't wait to see you again." I couldn't believe it. Our second, third, and fourth dates went just as well. Before I knew it, Sophie and I were officially a couple. At first, it was amazing. She was attentive, affectionate, and seemed genuinely interested in me. But as the weeks went by, cracks started to show. It started with little things. Sophie would text me constantly. At first, I thought it was sweet, she cared about me. But soon, it became overwhelming. If I didn't reply within a few minutes, she'd send question marks or call me repeatedly. One night, as we sat on my couch watching a movie, she looked at me and said, "We should share our locations with each other." I hesitated. "Why?" "So we always know where the other person is." "It's romantic," she said, smiling. I wasn't thrilled about it, but I agreed. I didn't have anything to hide, and I wanted to keep her happy. That decision would haunt me. A few weeks later, I was hanging out at my friend Jake's house. Sophie texted me, asking what I was doing. I told her I was with Jake and a few other friends. She didn't reply, so I assumed everything was fine. An hour later, Jake's mom came downstairs and said, "Aaron, there's a young woman at the door asking for you." I froze. I knew it was Sophie. She stormed into the basement, her face red with anger. "Why didn't you tell me you were coming here?" she demanded. "I did," I said, trying to stay calm. "I told you I was with Jake." "You didn't answer my texts after that," she yelled. I felt embarrassed in front of my friends. "Can we talk about this later?" I asked, trying to usher her upstairs. "No," she snapped. "We're talking about it now." I apologized to Jake and the others, then walked Sophie outside. We argued in the street, her voice getting louder with every word. "I'm your girlfriend, Aaron. You're supposed to prioritize me." "I do," I said, exasperated. "But I need time with my friends too." She demanded to come back to my house, but I said no. She finally left, but I knew something had to change. That night, I sent her a long text, saying we needed a break. Her response was immediate. She called me over and over, but I didn't answer. Then, she showed up at my house. I heard the pounding on my door, and the doorbell ringing nonstop. My neighbor came outside and asked what was going on. I listened from inside as Sophie yelled at him, calling me a piece of __. Eventually, she left. The next day, I stopped sharing my location with her. She noticed right away and texted me angrily. "Why did you do that? Are you hiding something?" I didn't respond. Instead, I blocked her number. For a week, things were quiet. I thought it was over. Then, one Friday night, I was at Jake's house again. I left around 11 p.m., went home, and made some food. I sat on the couch, scrolling through streaming apps for a good movie. That's when I heard it, a faint click from the dining room. I muted the TV and listened. Another click. "Hello?" I called out, my voice shaky. No response. I grabbed a kitchen knife and slowly walked toward the dining room. The door that connected it to the den was slightly open. I always kept it shut. I called 911, whispering into the phone. "I think someone's in my house," I said. The operator told me to leave if I could. I stepped outside and waited for the police, my heart racing. When they arrived, they searched the entire house. Every room, every closet, even the crawl space. Nothing. The officer told me to call again if anything else happened. I thanked him, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been there. That night, I locked my bedroom door and went to bed. Around 3 a.m., I woke up to my phone vibrating. I had dozens of texts from a random number. It was Sophie. "I'm sorry. I miss you. Can we please talk? Why aren't you answering?" I was about to block the number when I heard a noise, a faint rustling sound coming from the closet. I froze. "Sophie?" I whispered. The closet door burst open and Sophie screamed. "Why are you ignoring me?" She lunged at me with a knife, but I jumped out of bed and ran for the door. I managed to slam it shut and hold it closed. "Sophie, stop!" I yelled. She screamed and started stabbing the door, the blade piercing through the wood. "Baby, I love you. Please stop," I shouted, trying to calm her down. She paused. You love me?" "Yes," I lied. "I just need you to calm down so we can talk." "Okay," she said, her voice shaky. I heard her drop the knife. I opened the door slightly, just enough to see her standing there, tears streaming down her face. I tackled her to the ground and held her there while I called 911 again. When the police arrived, they arrested her. She was screaming, crying, saying she loved me. The legal process was long and exhausting. Sophie was convicted of multiple charges, including attempted assault. She's in prison now. I've moved to a new city and changed my number, but I still have nightmares about that night. I don't know if I'll ever fully recover, but I'm trying. If there's one thing I've learned, it's to never ignore the red flags.